Yo, check 1, 2. So I want to talk about the phrase, the elites have abandoned their host populations for international incentives. I think this is a big part of the puzzle in the modern world. What's going on in the modern world? When we talk about the elites, people at the top of society get things done. If you're huge in business, you've got the money to fund election campaigns for politicians in return for whatever favourable legislation or favours you want, that sort of thing. Politicians, bankers, top end of business, that sort of thing. The so-called elites, they're so retarded these days, it's hard to call them elites, but they do occupy positions at the top of society. But the point being, though, a lot of the things they seem to be doing now is cutting ties with their own nations, their own gene pools, their own history, their own societies, their own people, and acting like this, globo homo, global elite class. When the coronavirus happened in my country, there was a mining guy, very, very wealthy mining guy who makes obscene amounts of money mining resources from my country and shipping it off to China. So he's basically a middleman selling iron ore and other raw resources to China. And people were rightly angry at China for the way they lied and let the coronavirus spread all around the world. And he was on TV because, he's so rich he can get on TV. People go, well, he's a multi-billionaire, so let's find out what he says. The media all gives him a platform. And he's like, let's not be angry at China, come on, move past it, blah, 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 trying to soothe the situation. And it's not hard to see why. He is making a fortune. He's making multiples upon multiples of what normal people would make in a lifetime out of selling, my country's natural resources to China. So he doesn't want that relationship broken down. Now, typical boomer style, he could say, well, I'll defend my people. I will defend my society. I'll defend the people with which I share a gene pool, a history, a civilization, against, basically lying to save face on China's part. But no, they don't want to do that. They'd rather sell all that out, sell you out, sell the host populations out to keep the gravy train going. And a lot of these people, like I said, they will go and meet other people like them on a Greek Isle, on a yacht. Oh, you sell iron ore to China? Okay, cool. Well, I'm, a big shareholder in Apple. Oh, look, I'm from a weapons company that sells to God knows whatever. These people, these billionaires, they seem to be morphing completely into their own billionaires club, and that's their tribe, that's their in-group, is other billionaires from other countries, because the tribe, the group they want to belong to is billionaire, not American, British, or even European or Australian or Canadian. The tribe they want to belong to is international billionaire. And so as such, these people have power, and when they have the opportunity to exercise that power, they do so in ways that they're quite happy to sell out their host populations. Maybe it's just a new phenomenon because we're just so wealthy, and this class of billionaires is probably in human history a new phenomenon. Or maybe they're just boomers, and they've been, brainwashed to hate their own society and culture, and half of them are probably in this weird, human beings are a cancer on the earth kind of cult where they don't really like people anyway. But the point is, they have decided to sell out their host populations. This is evident in so many things they do. So many things. Even the world leaders will get together to decide, the Paris Accords, the climate change agreements, and world leaders are getting together, and they all go and have their G7 meetings, and it's all about, well, what are the other elites doing? And I want to be in the elite club. the politicians' club, you know, the aristocracy club with all the other international aristocrats. And for a lot of these people, I think that is way more important to them than being, well, I represent a state in Canada, or I represent my country with my countrymen in New Zealand, or etc., etc. You know what I'm saying? And so my gut instinct on this is that where the world is going is that they want to move into a society where you have an elite class on top and the rest of the world is interchangeable worker consumer bots. So what I mean by that is, I watched this documentary about how I think it was General Motors in America went broke, and to revive, I don't know if it was that company or just to revive the factories or something, there was a Chinese company moved in, and the Chinese management couldn't get the American workers to work Chinese style. They wanted pesky things like overtime pay and sick pay, and they didn't want to work more than 8 hours a day. And so the Chinese upper management brought in Chinese middle management to try and train the American workers to work like Chinese people, you know, and that is 12, 14 hours a day. You know, if you need to kill yourself because you're just so depressed, then just don't make a mess, kind of thing. And this suits the people up the top just fine. You know, I think they're breaking down nationalism, they're breaking down heritage, they're breaking down any sovereign identities of nations, because I think what they want is to have this interchangeable, international worker consumer class. They basically want, I think you know, they're copying the Chinese model, where a lot of the people, they work in factories, they don't cause a fuss, they don't have, you know, many rights, they work way too much. You know, this Western idea of the middle class, of the person who isn't born into the aristocracy, but you can start your own business and live a self-determined life, that you can be a sovereign person to earn enough money with a small business where you can set your own terms, you can be free. You know, they're definitely moving away from that. And so much of what they do is an attack on the middle class. I think this obviously should be resisted at all costs, and I think largely the answer to this is to hunker down while they do these crazy things, find other people on the same wavelength, find your tribe. And if you want to create sovereignty, the only way sovereignty is ever created is if you have reciprocal agreements with other people. And what that means is, say you're in a society and everyone's just individuals, and then you have some roving gang or whatever, or you have some people who are causing drama in a society. You know, an individual person can't stand up against a gang. So you're like, okay, what you do is you go around to a society and you say, if you come to my defense, I will come to yours. That is reciprocal sovereignty. So you are agreeing that you both want to be sovereign, self-determined people, and you will defend that mutually. You have a mutual reciprocal insurance of your sovereignty. And insurance means, you know, you will enforce it. If something tries to happen, you have the insurance of your community to come and defend your right to be sovereign. And I think on a small scale, that's what you need to start creating with people as we move into a very strange world over the next, you know, couple of decades possibly. Find people who have your values, and formally or informally, or even just on an intuitive level, start figuring out who your friends are and band together in groups for the sake of mutual safety and reciprocal insurance. But that aside, you know, I really think this is a big thing, or a big explanation of what's kind of happening is, you know, if you go back in the day, a king can only be a king if he has a kingdom. You know what I mean? Like a king with no subjects is not a king. So people, the ruling class would get their status by having subjects to rule over. So it was in their interest to gather people together as a kingdom and rule them. And now I think we've evolved into this state where what they want to be ruling is the whole world. You know what I mean? So I was listening to some politicians talking about my country, saying that by 2060, 75% of our population will be immigrants. And, you know, they're not taking in European immigrants. If they are, it's 10%, something like that, 1 in 10. Mostly it's going to be Middle Eastern, African, Asian, people who are not the dominant culture now, not the dominant heritage, gene pool, that sort of thing. And that's what I think they're doing. They're not looking at themselves. Like, say if you're, Justin Trudeau or whatever, and you're with Canada, you're not getting excited about the fact that your people of your European heritage, I don't know what his heritage is, but say he's European, whatever. I'm sure he is. You're not excited about the fact that people of your European heritage, created a nation of Canada. You don't care about that history. You don't care about the other people who share that history. You don't care about the people who share your gene pools. And in actual fact, the dominant values of today are that you hate those. And a lot of people get status by hating Western history, Western people. And by deconstructing it, they become morally superior by actively hating and deconstructing their Western heritage. And so what they're moving to now is like, well, Canada, anyone can be Canadian. Anyone of any ethnicity. You get some Arabic lady who doesn't even speak English at all, and she is Canadian just as much as you are. You know what I mean? And so that's where it's going. But if you look at the science of these things, Robert Putnam's diversity studies, diversity, ethnic diversity, multiculturalism, multiracialism, it destroys societal trust. And so, what's going to happen is that, I think anyway, I don't know for sure, but I would put my guess on, as they ramp up this global, interchangeable, multiracial, whatever, no heritage, no history, just interchangeable worker bot thing, you're going to get a very low trust society. You're going to get a very corrupt society. And these are defining characteristics of a third world society. So I really think that a lot of the countries in the West, what is happening is that the elites, the boomers, God knows whatever other categories you care to define, they are selling out their countries for the sake of short-term profits. And as a result, we are on our way to becoming third world countries. Another thing you have to understand is, if you own an electricity company in a Western nation, and say you have a population of, 50 million people, if you can go and get another 50 million people from India and put them in your country, and now you have 100 million people, that's another 50 million people who are going to need electricity, basic mass consumer services and goods such as mobile phones, electricity, maybe cheap cars, just because everybody needs that. And so if you're one of these big companies that owns a utility company or just the sort of product that everyone's going to buy, the more immigration you get, you win on two fronts. One is you double your consumer base, and with more supply, with more demand, you can put up the price. But even if you don't put up the price as well, maybe you lower the price, but it's just selling to twice as many people. So the top end of town, they're going to make more money. The other way they heavily win is you get to bid down the price of labor, because a lot of the people from these third world countries, a lot of the immigrants, they are unskilled or low skilled in the majority, and so they're not generally competing for CEO of an airline company kind of job. They're going to be competing for the lower class jobs and even small business. So you get to bid down the price of cheap labor, which if you're a big, huge company, once again, you win on that. So look, my prediction for the future, the way things are going, things can always change, maybe people can wake up. I'm not super confident in that, but maybe people can change the direction of this sort of thing. But if you just look at anyone with influence or money and the values that they have, they're usually pro-immigration. They're usually, typically look at the media. The media and the politicians and the rich people will be more angry at their own citizens for not wanting to wear masks or be in lockdown or have their small business suffer. They'll be more angry at their own countrymen than they will, let me rephrase this. They will express more anger at their own countrymen than they will express at China for either creating this and letting it loose accidentally or on purpose, or also just for lying. When it first happened, it's a known fact that China locked down internally, yet let flights continue to happen internationally. Therefore, spread it to the rest of the world. If China was upfront and honorable, which they're not, or extended whatever honor or goodwill to people outside their own group, I'm sure they're just working for the interest of their own Chinese group. But if they had other countries' best interest at heart, they would have been honest and said, look, we've got this thing, shut down the internationals. How many people in Italy would still be alive if China had just stopped flights internationally, everywhere? But that's a whole other story. But the point is, a lot of your elites will be more angry at you for protesting lockdowns and having your small business go broke than they will be at China for letting this loose and lying about it. And that is because they would rather be in the billionaire club. They would rather be in the we get cheap labor from all around the world club, we've doubled our customer base because we've doubled the population of a Western country with immigrants club. They'd rather be in the billionaires club, making, untold fortunes, selling to China or doing whatever international business they are doing. A lot of them seem to be more interested in being in the international business persons club, the international billionaires club, than they are being a part of their host nation, And as a result, I think we are likely headed towards more like a third world status where you have a billionaire oligarchy who have all the money and the rest of the people are doing it really tough and getting poorer and poorer. So look, that's what I think is happening. So I guess don't listen to them, just realize that a lot of these things you're told, and someone starts talking about immigration, we should take in all this immigration, a lot of these billionaires who own the media and all forms of media that people consume, they'll put a message like that out into the world. We should be multicultural. It's moral to be multicultural. Brainwashing people with a narrative that suits their incentives. And then you just get all these NPCs being like, yeah, if you don't flood your country with everyone else, if you don't become a minority in your own country, you must be racist. And all the NPCs just do what the TV tells them to. But, if you do have two brain cells to rub together, just know, a lot of these things they're telling you suit the incentives of the people in power. And my guess as to what seems to be happening is that they would prefer to be in the International Billionaires Club than give a shit about you. And so, like I said before, find other people who are like you, find the people who want to be sovereign, and that's usually your middle class people who want to have some self-determination over their lives, who want to be left alone. Find your middle class conservative type people, build good small local tribal relationships with them, and try to hunker down, and if if it is true that we are heading for, in the Western countries for third world status, you just have to, create these little pockets of small tribes of people who, band together for the sake of mutual reciprocity and insurance of sovereignty. That's, I think, if things go really bad, I think that's the best we can do. But at the end of the day, you should probably do that anyway, because no matter what challenges you face in the future, having that tribe of people is invaluable.